You left the funeral, but something left with you. And now, it's following you. Most people don't realize this: attending a funeral is not just an emotional experience, it's an energetic exchange. You walk in carrying sorrow, and you walk out carrying something far heavier, an invisible weight, a layer of death energy that clings to your aura, silently disrupting your mood, your health, and even your luck. In feng shui, we call this energy residue. It's subtle but powerful. It has no smell, no sound, but it slips into your home, your relationships, your finances, and it doesn't just affect you. One wrong step after a funeral, just one stop in the wrong place, and that lingering energy can ripple outward, disturbing those you love. Today's video is not about fear. It's about awareness, because there is one mistake people make over and over again, thinking the funeral ends at the gravesite. It doesn't. Energetically, it continues. And the most common place people go right after a funeral, it's the very place that lets that negative energy anchor itself into your life. In the next few minutes, I'll show you where not to go, why it matters, and how just one shift in your behavior can protect the energy of your home, your body, and your future. If you've ever felt drained after a funeral but couldn't explain why, what you're about to hear will change the way you protect yourself forever. Part 1. Why energy after a funeral is dangerous. You might think that leaving the cemetery is the end of the ceremony. But what if the real energy exchange begins after you walk away? Funerals aren't just rituals of goodbye, they're energetic thresholds. The atmosphere is thick with grief, incense, stillness, and the unspoken weight of unfinished emotions. Even if no one cries out loud, the air holds the vibration of every silent heartbreak. And energy, especially heavy, yin-dominant energy, clings to that silence like moisture to a window. In feng shui, yin energy represents stillness, cold, and retreat. It isn't inherently bad, it governs rest, sleep, and reflection. But in excess, yin becomes stagnation. It turns into that strange heaviness you feel when a room has no laughter, no warmth, no movement. And a funeral, that's the most yin-saturated space we enter in this life. You don't have to believe in ghosts to be affected. This isn't about the supernatural. It's about resonance. When you sit in an environment where the collective energy is mourning, that frequency starts to sync with your own. It changes your field, whether you notice it or not. And the human body, subtle as it is, often reacts before the mind understands. That's why people report feeling tired for days after a funeral. Not from emotions, but from exposure to condensed, unprocessed energy. But here's where the real misunderstanding happens. Most people assume that once they've left the venue, that energy fades. In reality, it follows the body like a soft dust. It clings to the skin, the clothing, even the voice. You carry it into your car, into your living room, into your bed, and suddenly, spaces that once felt calm start to feel tense. You sleep, but not deeply. You wake up with a heaviness in the chest. Small arguments erupt over nothing. Plants don't thrive the way they used to. You wonder if you're just tired or if something shifted and you didn't notice. Here's a thought most people don't consider. What if energy travels slower than your body? What if while you've moved on from the funeral, the frequency you absorbed is still catching up, settling into places it doesn't belong? You think you've returned to normal, but your field is still resonating with sorrow. This isn't about paranoia, it's about pattern. Because energy left unprocessed doesn't disappear. It embeds, it echoes. It settles where there's openness, and most homes, most hearts, are open without protection. Some people call it bad luck when their days start spiraling after a funeral. But what if luck is just a reflection of energy meeting circumstance? What if the string of small misfortunes, lost keys, disturbed sleep, emotional tension isn't random at all? What if it's the consequence of never clearing the energy that was never yours to keep? We've all walked into spaces that felt heavy for no reason. Or met people who seemed drained even though they smiled. Maybe we've been that person, and no one ever told us why. So let's ask a different question, not what's wrong with me, but what energy did I bring back without knowing? If you've ever left a funeral and felt off, like you were carrying more than memory, maybe it wasn't just emotion. Maybe it was energy, unacknowledged, asking to be seen before it turned into symptoms. This is where awareness begins, not in fear, but in subtle observation. It's not about rituals or rules. It's about learning to notice the shift before it compounds. Because when energy moves slowly, consequences arrive quietly. And by the time they're loud, they've already taken root. Part 2. Do not visit homes with pregnant women you've walked out of the funeral, but the energy you carry hasn't left yet. That subtle weight, that lingering vibration, it may be trailing you into places you never thought could be affected. One of those places is the home of a pregnant woman. And if you pause to think, you'll see why this matters more than you imagine. When a home shelters a woman carrying new life, the energetic field around her becomes extraordinarily soft. Her body, her mind, her field are in transformation. Birth energy is gentle, open, vulnerable. In the world of feng shui, creation demands clarity, purity, space. And the energy from a funeral, it brings stillness, heaviness, a sort of yin residue that does not align with transformation. It burdens it. If you bring that into her space unwittingly, you place an unexpected load on the life forming inside. Consider this: a renowned business leader enters a boardroom right after attending a memorial service. He offers his condolences, taps a shoulder, sits, meets his deadlines, but that same afternoon, his pregnant sister at home grows restless, sleeps poorly, her baby stirs more than usual. Energy doesn't stay put at the door, it flows quietly, following you into every room. The home of a pregnant woman is like a porous vessel. It absorbs what the outer world leaves behind. Now ask yourself, when you stepped into her space, were you still wearing the cloak of the funeral's energy field? Did your aura still whisper goodbyes to the one you lost? If so, that whisper might have turned into a soft presence in her house and in her system. What you meant as a visit of compassion could, energetically, become a visit of weight. Feng Shui masters caution that the months of pregnancy require protection of subtle energy. They advise avoiding heavy emotional environments, noisy disruptions, even strong renovation work, because the unborn child is unconsciously recording and interacting with the energy field of its surroundings. The mother's home must be a sanctuary of light, not a spillway of recent sorrow. When you arrive carrying that residual funeral energy, you disturb that sanctuary. You're not just walking in, you're importing. This is why the topic matters so much. You don't need to believe in superstition. You just need to recognize that energy is real, measurable, and influential. The pregnant woman's home is a space where new life wants to grow, not be interrupted by another's exit from life. When you visit without clearing your field, you create a mismatch of frequencies. The guest brings death's echo, the house holds birth's promise. Which one wins? Usually neither. Both feel the clash. Let's be very practical. Imagine you enter her living room. Your steps are slow, your thoughts still loop around memories. She welcomes you with warmth, tries to smile, but her body tightens. She senses a heaviness, though she can't quite name it. She carries the baby and she knows instinctively something is off. That off isn't a sneer or admonishment, it's subtle, it's mood, it's drop in sleep quality. She wonders, am I safe? Is the baby safe? Why do I feel unrest even in the house I love? And you think everything is fine, you just came to offer comfort. Here's the key takeaway: when you've been to a funeral, you owe it to her and to yourself to pause, to clear, to detach before entering environments that require delicate energy. She is not just hosting a visitor, she is upholding an entire field of creation. And you carry not just condolences but potential disruption. Have you ever walked into a celebration after a funeral and sensed something went wrong? Or sat in a quiet room with someone pregnant and felt your own mood shift? If so, you were witnessing this energy misalignment. Recognizing it is the first step, honoring it is the true act of care. Part 3. Avoid visiting the ill or elderly immediately after a funeral. There's a moment after a funeral when silence clings to your skin. You've paid your respects, you've whispered your goodbyes, but a part of you hasn't yet returned to equilibrium. That part, subtle, quiet, almost invisible, is what walks with you next. And if your next stop is the home of someone ill or elderly, then what you carry may matter more than you realize. Illness in feng shui is never just a physical issue. It's an energetic imbalance, a shift in the body's natural harmony where yang energy, the energy of life, movement, and resilience, begins to fade. What remains is a body more porous, more delicate, more reactive to external forces. When you walk into a room holding grief-laden energy, you're not just entering, you're interacting. Let's be honest, most people visit the sick out of love. They want to comfort, to show presence, to lift someone's spirits. But what if your presence brings in the very heaviness their system can no longer filter out? What if the moment you stepped into their room, their fragile balance tilted further, not because you meant harm, but because your field was still full of the energy of loss? In feng shui, The field of a sick or aging person is no longer strong enough to neutralize foreign energy. Their internal forces are already occupied with repair. Introducing unprocessed emotional energy into that space is like pouring dark ink into clear water. It doesn't take much to cloud the whole system. And yet, because we can't see energy the way we see wounds, we assume it's harmless. We tell ourselves it's fine. But then, days later, we notice they slept more than usual, their appetite dipped, their mood sank further, and we don't connect the dots. Energy doesn't ask permission to enter. It simply responds to where the field is weakest. It's worth asking after a funeral, when your mind is quiet but your energy is still vibrating with sorrow, what do you truly bring into a healing space? Is it support or is it disturbance? Is your silence calming or is it laced with residue? And most importantly, does the person you're visiting have the vitality to absorb what you unknowingly offer? You may think your intentions are pure, and perhaps they are. But in the realm of energy, intention alone does not clear the field. It's the state of your energy that either uplifts or burdens the room. This is where the wisdom of ancient feng shui offers us a gentle nudge, not to avoid the sick, but to become aware of when we're not yet ready to support them. There's a story from a renowned Japanese tea master who refused to host ceremonies on days of mourning. When asked why, he replied, "Tea is served in balance. Grief is served in silence. The two should not share the same cup." The same holds true here. Healing is a space that demands gentle energy, not overlapping sorrow. When two forms of depletion meet, they don't create strength, they amplify weakness. So let's reverse the usual thinking. Instead of assuming that any visit is better than none, ask, is my energy compatible with the energy needed here? Instead of asking what you can give, ask what your presence might change in ways no words can fix. This isn't about guilt. It's about subtle care, the kind that respects not just the emotions of the sick but the invisible language of their body and space. Some will hear this and think it's too cautious, too invisible, too abstract. But energy has always worked that way. It's the undercurrent, not the surface. It's what makes a room feel safe or heavy, what makes recovery feel possible or delayed. If you've ever watched someone's face subtly shift when you enter without saying a word, you've witnessed this play out. So now, pause for a moment. Imagine the person you care about lying quietly, conserving every ounce of strength. Their room is still, their body is listening, their spirit is trying to rise. And you, just hours after attending a funeral, walk in carrying not just yourself, but layers you haven't yet released. That's not presence, that's pressure. And yet, none of this is about blame. It's about awareness. It's about seeing energy as real as breath, as influential as medication, and as personal as love. Because when you begin to observe energy in this way, you move through life with a deeper kind of compassion, one that doesn't need to speak loudly to be felt. Part 4. Never step into a business place after a funeral. You may think commerce and emotion live in separate worlds. But energy makes no such distinction. After a funeral, there's a subtle stillness that clings to your body. Not grief in its loudest form, but something quieter, slower, and far heavier. And when that quiet weight enters a business environment, an office, a cafe, a store, it doesn't just go unnoticed. It interferes. In feng shui, business spaces are powered by yang energy, movement, interaction, clarity, and financial flow. It's what keeps conversations light, negotiations sharp, and ideas moving forward. That's why you feel uplifted when entering a vibrant store, or energized in a well-lit workspace. These environments are designed to circulate energy quickly and continuously, because money is a form of energy and it doesn't move well through stagnant air. Now picture what happens when someone walks in carrying the dense, yin-heavy field of a funeral. Their movement is slower, their gaze is inward. Their presence, though well-meaning, subtly alters the rhythm of the room. People may not consciously notice it, but they feel it. The air shifts, the buzz dulls, the momentum pauses, staff feel tired, customers browse but don't buy. Decisions that were clear begin to hesitate. Nothing seems obviously wrong, but the vitality in the room has lost its edge. This isn't superstition, it's sensitivity. And while most modern professionals don't talk about energy, they experience it every day. A boutique owner who suddenly sees a dip in traffic. A team that begins the day strong but grows quiet after one visitor. A cafe that goes from lively to listless without explanation. Often, it's not the product, not the marketing. It's the energetic mismatch between the space's purpose and the visitor's current vibration. Here's something few admit: even silence has weight when it enters the wrong room. Imagine someone coming in after a funeral out of habit, just to pick up coffee or meet a friend. They're present, but their energy is elsewhere. Their stillness fills the space like mist. The transaction completes, but the energy exchange leaves a trace. One person's unresolved emotional frequency can temporarily mute a space built on flow and openness. Not intentionally, but unavoidably. And it's not about blame. It's about understanding how finely tuned a business environment is. When it runs well, it feels effortless, but behind that flow is an intricate web of people, focus, and subtle harmony. When you introduce grief-bound energy unprocessed and residual, it acts like static in that system. Not loud, just persistent. You may ask, does this really matter? Does one person's energy truly influence an entire space? In high-energy environments, yes. Especially when the space is small, the energy circulates quickly, and staff rely on intuition to connect with customers. In such spaces, presence isn't just visual, it's vibrational. A heavy field walks in, and the sales rhythm slips. People don't feel like buying. They don't know why. Now think of this: if we accept that energy attracts like energy, then after a funeral, when your field is saturated in endings and reflection, do you really want to walk into a space that is striving for beginnings and momentum? The real question isn't about where you're allowed to go. It's about where your energy belongs and when. A business thrives on timing, on alignment, on seamless flow. It's not a place for unfinished emotional energy to pause and linger. Even if you're not talking about your loss, you're bringing it in with every step. So perhaps it's not about whether it's polite or appropriate, but whether it's energetically congruent. Whether the space is ready to receive you. Whether you're ready to offer clean energy in return. Sometimes, waiting just a little while letting your field settle, your energy rebalance, does more for both you and the space than showing up too soon. Because money doesn't just follow strategy. It follows flow. And flow depends on how gently or how heavily you enter the room. Part 5. Sacred spaces need clean energy too. Not all silence is sacred. Some silence carries peace. Some carries residue. Do you know which one you brought with you? After a funeral, it's common, almost instinctive, for people to visit a temple, a church, a quiet garden. They seek refuge, meaning, or a soft place to rest the weight of grief. The desire to connect with something higher after loss is deeply human. But here's the paradox: the energy you bring into a sacred space shapes how that space receives you and how it holds you. And when your field is clouded by heavy, unprocessed funeral energy, even the most spiritual place can become misaligned. Temples, shrines, sacred altars, these are not neutral places. They are finely attuned environments, crafted over time through devotion, stillness, and intention. In feng shui, they are considered concentrated wells of high-frequency energy, where prayers accumulate like mist, where light moves slowly, and where the veil between thought and spirit is thinner than usual. In such spaces, energy doesn't just exist, it echoes. That's why walking into a temple isn't the same as walking into a room. You don't just enter, you merge. And if you arrive from a funeral without first tending to your own energetic state, you bring in vibrations that don't harmonize with the temple's resonance. It's not about being unworthy. It's about being energetically incompatible. Think about the energy you carry after a funeral: subdued, dense, internally turned. You're still processing farewells, you're still holding others' tears in your chest. That emotional imprint becomes part of your energy field, and it doesn't disappear at the temple gate. In fact, it might grow stronger, because sacred spaces often amplify what's already within. That's why some people feel lighter after praying, while others feel overwhelmed. The temple didn't change. The field that entered it did. Imagine a clear pond meant to reflect the sky, then someone walks into it with muddy shoes. The intention wasn't to disturb, but the clarity blurs anyway. This is how temples respond to unresolved energy. Not with judgment, but with imbalance. The light within the space tries to hold your sorrow, but if the sorrow is too dense, it absorbs rather than reflects. There's also a deeper layer many don't speak about. Sacred spaces are not empty. They are filled with intention, prayer, memory, and sometimes even the subtle presence of unresolved energy from others. Every candle lit for someone lost, every tear dropped in silence, leaves a vibration. And when you arrive with a field saturated in recent grief, you may unintentionally sync with those dormant layers. Instead of finding peace, you reawaken sorrow, not just your own, but collective. That's why some people leave a shrine feeling heavier than before. Not because the space failed, but because the merging wasn't aligned. And what if the temple is quiet, mostly empty, or unmanned? In feng shui, such stillness allows energy to settle more deeply. In such moments, your presence carries more weight. Your field becomes the dominant note. If you are still vibrating with funeral energy, the space meant for balance has to absorb what you offer. Not out of choice, but out of design. This is why sacred spaces need clean energy, not perfection, not denial of grief, but clarity of presence. A sense of readiness, a pause. Because even in prayer, the how matters as much as the what. Some people enter sacred spaces hoping to leave behind their pain. But pain is not shed like clothing. If it hasn't been metabolized, it arrives with you, sits beside you, and sometimes spills outward into the stillness others came to find. So, what does it mean to clean your energy before visiting sacred places? It's not ritual for ritual's sake. It's resonance hygiene. It's recognizing that some energies, especially those picked up in heavy environments, need time to settle, to move, to dissipate. And sacred spaces aren't disposal bins for unresolved emotion. They're mirrors, they show us where we are. And if we're not ready to see that, the reflection can feel too sharp. You don't enter a sacred space to be cleansed. You enter to remember your own clarity. But that memory can't surface if your field is clouded with borrowed grief. This isn't about restricting where you go. It's about choosing the right time to be there. Grief deserves reverence, but it also requires stewardship. And when you bring grief into places meant for harmony, you must ask not whether it's allowed, but whether it's held. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do after a funeral is not to seek a higher vibration too soon. Because energy, like breath, needs rhythm. Push it too fast and it contracts. Let it rest and it expands. You're not too broken to visit sacred spaces. But maybe you're not ready yet, not because you lack devotion, but because your field hasn't finished processing what it absorbed. And maybe, just maybe, sacredness isn't about the place you go, but the space you bring with you when you arrive. Part 6. Hospitals, a dangerous mixing zone. Some places are already full. Not with people, but with energy. Hospitals are one of them. We think of hospitals as places of care, places where recovery begins. But under the surface of medication and machinery, there's another layer, an invisible one. A hospital is a space saturated with urgency, fear, hope, waiting, and often endings. It holds the energy of pain as much as it holds the intention to heal. Every room, every hallway, every chair in a waiting area carries traces of hundreds of emotional exchanges. From whispered prayers to tears swallowed in silence. In feng shui, this environment is already marked by hygiene accumulation, a thick layer of dense, emotional energy. Not evil, not dark, just extremely heavy. The kind of heaviness that clings to the skin after long nights and life-altering news. Now consider this: when you walk in fresh from a funeral, carrying your own field of unprocessed sorrow, what happens when that energy meets what's already there? It doesn't blend, it compounds. This is what we call layered heaviness. When the residual energy from one loss steps into a space where pain is already hanging in the air, the vibration amplifies, not outwardly, not immediately, but deeply, quietly, subtly. Suddenly the room feels tighter, the patient grows restless. The air takes on a kind of thickness that isn't from temperature but tension. You may not notice it, but the one lying in the bed might. Because illness is not just a physical depletion. It's a thinning of the protective energetic field. The sick become more susceptible not just to germs or exhaustion, but to energetic shifts too small for most people to name. Now ask this: what do you bring with you when you enter a hospital after a funeral? Your body, your concern, your words of comfort. Yes, but also your field, still tender, still echoing with farewells, still holding unspoken weight, and that field enters first. Before you touch a hand, before you speak a word, that field has already brushed the room. Some will argue, but my intention was good. Of course it was, but intention doesn't always clean the air, it simply moves within it. Energy does not respond to emotion, it responds to state. And your state, when still marked by the density of death energy, cannot offer lightness. Not yet. It's why many traditional cultures quietly advise waiting before visiting hospitals after funerals. Not out of superstition, but out of understanding. The body takes time to return to balance. The field takes even longer, and a hospital already brimming with silent struggles is not a place to carry extra weight. Imagine this instead: you've just left a funeral. You loved the person deeply. Your heart is still heavy. You go straight to visit your friend recovering from surgery. You sit, you talk, they smile, you leave, and 2 days later, they tell you they've been sleeping poorly. Their chest feels tight. The room feels off. No one connects it to your visit, but perhaps something lingered. Something you didn't mean to leave behind but did. The irony? You wanted to uplift them, but your field hadn't yet released what it absorbed. And so your presence, however kind, became energetically disruptive. In feng shui, hospitals are considered energy transfer stations where lives are saved but also where transitions occur. Birth, healing, dying, they all take place under one roof. The emotional imprint in such places is thick and unavoidable. So any energy you bring in, especially from another transitional event like a funeral, immediately interacts with the ambient field. And in that space, what is unresolved finds places to settle. So what can be done? Not a ritual, not a chant, but a pause. Time to let your energy settle, a short walk in sunlight, washing your hands and face, standing beneath a tree, letting your breath deepen. These aren't spiritual acts, they're energetic hygiene. You don't cleanse yourself for you. You do it for the field you're about to enter. The patient doesn't just need love. They need the kind of presence that doesn't carry debris. Because healing isn't just about treatment, it's about stability. And when energy is stable, the body responds with more trust. The room holds more peace. The recovery deepens. So next time you consider entering a hospital after a funeral, ask not what you want to do, but what the space needs from you. And whether you're in a state to offer it. Because in places already holding life and death in the same breath, every step you take carries weight. Part 7: How to cleanse your energy after a funeral. Some things cling quietly. Grief is one. So is energy. And after a funeral, you carry both whether you notice or not. By now, you've seen how funeral energy doesn't just stay at the ceremony. It travels with you into homes, businesses, sacred spaces, hospitals. It touches people who never attended, shifts rooms that were once calm, and quietly rearranges how you feel in your own body. But none of this is a sentence. It's a signal. Energy that enters can also exit if you know how to invite it to leave. Cleansing energy after a funeral isn't a ritual of fear. It's a ritual of return. It's about giving yourself the chance to come back into rhythm with life after standing so close to the presence of death. Not because death is negative, but because its energy is dense and not meant to linger. So what does cleansing look like? It begins with simplicity, with the oldest wisdoms passed down not through superstition, but through observation. Step into sunlight, not just for light, but for heat, for life force. Yang energy is activated by warmth and movement. When you expose your skin, your chest, your head to direct, gentle sunlight, even for a few minutes, you're signaling to your body that you're choosing re-entry into flow. It dries what is damp, lifts what is heavy, and reawakens what was numbed by sorrow. Wash your hands and feet with warm water, especially water infused with ginger. In feng shui, ginger is one of the most grounding roots, known for cutting through stagnant chi. The hands carry the touch of farewell. The feet carry the direction of your path. By washing both, you symbolically and energetically release what was clinging. Not just dirt, but trace impressions. Burn soft incense, not to cover a smell, but to fill space with intention. Sandalwood, frankincense, or gentle herbs are ideal. As the smoke rises, observe where your breath changes, where your chest opens, where your shoulders drop. These are signals that something has moved. Move your body, even if slowly. Walk, stretch, dance, shake your limbs. Grief lives in stillness. Energy lives in motion. To bring one out of the other, you must meet your body where it is and gently lead it back into life. The body doesn't respond to logic. It responds to rhythm. Laugh with someone safe, not to avoid grief, but to remind your nervous system that joy is still allowed. In feng shui, sound carries frequency. The sound of laughter breaks up stagnant fields more quickly than almost anything. Even if it's soft, even if it's through tears. Open the windows in your home. You didn't just bring funeral energy on your body, you may have left traces in your living space. Letting air move through your rooms, especially within 24 hours of returning, prevents that energy from settling. It's like wiping condensation off a mirror. The reflection returns clearer. Place a small bowl of salt in the corners of your room for 24 hours. Salt is crystalline structure, meaning it absorbs and holds energy patterns. The corners are where stagnant energy tends to accumulate. The next day, flush the salt not in the sink, but in running outdoor water, or bury it. Let the field reset. None of these actions are dramatic, none require belief. But each one speaks the language of energy, not through explanation, but through resonance. Because healing in feng shui is not about repair, it's about realignment. You're not cleansing because something is wrong. You're cleansing because something moved, and now you're ready to move with it, not carry it. And if you've ever wondered why some people recover from grief gently while others seem haunted by it, perhaps the difference is not in the size of their sorrow, but in whether they let the energy settle or whether they invited it to keep moving. Because not all burdens are yours to keep. Some simply need permission to leave. Most people don't think twice after a funeral. They go where they always go: visit someone, grab a coffee, stop by a shrine. They believe the ceremony ends when they leave. But energy doesn't work that way. It lingers, it moves slowly, and it waits inside you, around you, within the spaces you enter next. We've walked through 6 quiet thresholds where this unspoken heaviness can ripple outward without warning. Visiting a pregnant woman without clearing your energy may gently disturb the beginning of a life. Visiting the sick might accidentally burden a body already trying to heal. Entering a business space can disrupt its flow. Sacred spaces may reflect back more than you're ready to face. Hospitals might absorb more weight than they can hold. And the most overlooked mistake, believing that energy will dissolve on its own. That time is enough. That silence means release. It's not. What most people do is what everyone around them does. They follow the crowd, go straight from the cemetery to a temple, to a hospital, to a friend's house. They think kindness or habit is protection. But feng shui teaches us something more subtle. Awareness is the real shield. And timing is a quiet form of respect. It's not about avoiding life after loss. It's about knowing when your energy is still echoing someone else's goodbye and not letting that echo enter places meant for joy, growth, or recovery. The mistake isn't feeling too much. It's not recognizing when you're still carrying what wasn't meant to stay. So pause, notice, not to fear, not to judge, but to move gently. Because every place has its rhythm, and every visit is an offering of presence, of energy, of vibration. The question is, what are you truly bringing with you, even when your hands are empty?